Okay, hello everybody. We've heard a lot this morning about some of the needs and some of the challenges and the problems. So I wanted to give you a bit of an industry perspective on what a global company such as Unilever, who are a fast-moving consumer goods company, where clearly consumption is core to our business, what we're doing and some of the actions we're taking in this space. So I'll go through some of those, what we're doing today. So businesses are not immune to many of these challenges we've heard. I'm just going to tell you a bit about how Unilever is impacted by these pressures. So we are seeing increasing demand and resource scarcity. We are well aware that populations are arriving towards 9 billion people, that demand and competition for land and for usable water sources are increasing, and security of supply for us is a core business issue. If we're going to be operational and have a good reputation going forwards, we need to make sure we're managing these things. As Carly pointed out in her presentation, emerging consumer needs are becoming an increasingly important issue to us. Consumers are reacting to what they're hearing in the external world. They're asking where their food is coming from, how it's produced, and what impact it has on the environment once they've finished with it. Since Unilever released their sort of big global targets in 2010, we've continued to be affected by economic and social turmoil and upheaval. And as a financial sector and multinational companies, we've all been criticised, and a lot of this has been justified. So as an organisation, Unilever needs to focus on the long term and not just look at our quarterly earnings and our immediate targets. We need to put ourselves in core part of society and make sure that our citizens and communities carry the same weight as our stakeholders do. So for Unilever, we're operating in a world where we have these massive global challenges. Population is growing, climate change is accelerating, water is becoming increasingly scarce. And as Mike points out, there's a lot of social elements to these as well, where 1 billion people are hungry around the world, another billion are overweight, and over 1 million children each year are dying from things like diarrheal diseases, which are quite easily solvable. So these factors are affecting the way that we're sourcing, and we're looking forward moving our targets forward to sustainable sourcing and sustainable agriculture. So what does sustainability mean for us? So a sustainable business is a growing and profitable business where we deliver on the 3 core pillars of sustainability: the social, the economic, and the environmental outcomes. For us, the business case for sustainability is a compelling one and covers a lot of these things. So many of the retailers that we supply our produce to have sustainability targets of their own and need the support of suppliers like Unilever to implement them. This collaboration is also helping to deepen our relationships and helping us win with our customers. Sustainability is a fertile area for product and packaging innovation, and it's allowing us to deliver new products and give consumers additional benefits. We're also making sure that managing our own operations sustainably reduces energy, minimises packaging, and begins to drive out waste. So our vision going forwards is to create this sustainable growing business, and it's helping us also to attract the best talent to Unilever to help us do this. So one of our big actions, as probably many of you have heard about, in 2010 we released the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. This was a highly ambitious plan that's a 10-year commitment. Within this, we have areas to improve health and well-being, so covering the social side, hugely reducing our environmental impact, and helping to enhance livelihoods. This whole plan encompasses over 60 time-bound commitments, everything from increasing sustainable packaging to reducing the salt content in soups, so helping on all different scales. Our vision as a company is to double the size of the business and halve the environmental impact. Something we've been attacked for, praised for in all different kinds of ways. Clearly, doubling the size of the business has a heavy focus on increasing consumerism. But whilst halving the environmental impact, we're hoping to continue to grow as a sustainable business and help global consumption levels. So within this vision, we have 3 big goals by 2020. The first is to help 1 billion people to improve their health and well-being. The second is to halve the environmental impact of our products and to source 100% of our raw agricultural materials sustainably. I'm going to focus on these latter 2 today, as that's what we've been talking about, and that's what this report highlights a lot of different things for us in that area. So why does sustainable sourcing matter to us? Just want to ask the audience, what percentage do you think of our raw materials that we source are from agriculture? Has anyone got any ideas? 80%? bit lower? 60. Actually 50%. So still significant. That's half our materials coming in for both our home and personal care products, our laundry products, our detergents, as well as the food products. So it's got a huge impact for us. And this graph here basically shows that we have a huge impact in an area of very limited control. Clearly, sourcing raw agricultural materials is actually outside our direct sphere of influence. But it means it's a huge area for us to tackle. And we have to have our own house in order and deal with our own operations before we can start to make any influence there. So, yeah, your 50% is, and this is why it's so important to us. So in 2008, we conducted a huge baseline assessment where we did a life cycle assessment of 1,600 representative Unilever products and looked at the impacts across the whole entire life cycle chain. You can see here that our direct impact is only about 3%, which is tiny and is not going to get us anywhere to this halving our environmental impact across our whole life cycle. And you can see that raw agricultural materials are over a quarter, and clearly consumer use is another part that we need to focus on. So this report was really helping us to sort of emphasize those facts that we need to look at both the sourcing and also tackle this consumerism area of our life cycle impacts. So yeah, I'm going to talk a bit more about the sourcing. For food and agriculture, it's important that we look at different metrics as well within our life cycle impacts. So our greenhouse gases is 26%. 50% of our water use is in the agricultural production of our materials. And a huge amount of our emissions also comes from this waste area, where we have 34% of leftover food. So within our sustainable sourcing targets, we're on track. We've got targets towards 2020, and you can see here some of our top 10 raw materials that we're focusing on, which include palm oil, fruit and vegetables, tea, cocoa, and dairy products. And you can see the progress we're making in different areas. So with some, such as palm oil and paper and board, we're a lot further ahead than we are in other areas. So this is showing the work we're doing, but also a lot of the work that still needs to be done. So some more of our sustainable sourcing actions. So what is Unilever's definition of sustainable agriculture? Well, we aim to be able to show that we are sourcing from farmers and suppliers that have good yields of the right quality. And as was mentioned by one of the audience members, we want to be able to get to those theoretical yields that we know are possible given the right management practices and the right inputs. We want to start to optimize the use of all these inputs and minimize our negative effect on the environment, and so help Unilever to reduce and halve this environmental impact that they've set this global target to do. So 2 ways we're going about this. Firstly, we're going to certification schemes, and we've also developed the Unilever self-verification scheme, which is under our Sustainable Agriculture Code. Just a bit about each of these. For certification schemes, it's essentially trusting somebody else to do this for us. So we're buying into Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade, Global Gap, many of the other schemes that go out there and advocate best agricultural practices and help farmers to move to being more sustainable. So we've benchmarked many of these schemes against our own scheme to ensure that our whole supply base are doing similar things and moving in the right direction. The self-verification area is a very interesting one, and we're finding a lot of challenges within this. As has been mentioned by some of the other panel members, the quantification element is something that is really new and is really difficult to do. It's all very well having a tick box activity to say, yes, this is sustainable, here's a nice stamp. But what this Sustainable Agriculture Code is trying to do is move forwards and begin to quantify some of these impacts so that we can see that the impact of certification is having a measurable greenhouse gas or water footprint reduction. And so this is one of our new challenging areas. And within this code, we cover several different metrics. The theme of the code is continuous improvement. So it is demonstrating these incremental changes over time. And one of the key areas that I focus on within my work is looking at the energy and greenhouse gases. And that's clearly relevant to this morning's talk as well. So one of the tools we're using, I'll just give one brief slide on this, to measure our energy and greenhouse gas impact from our agriculture is a tool called the Cool Farm tool. It's essentially a greenhouse gas balance calculator that was developed in collaboration between the University of Aberdeen, Unilever, and the Sustainable Food Lab. It's a farmer-focused calculator that helps to provide decision support for farmers to understand and manage the greenhouse gas impact of their system. It's a generic calculator that is globally applicable. So for a company like Unilever, it's great because we can roll it out to our entire supply chain. And it means we're asking all our farmers the same question. It's taken a few steps forward as well in recent years and has been extensively tested by the Sustainable Food Lab under a project called Cool Farming Options. And currently now we have a collaboration which has developed an institute between Unilever, Tesco's, Heineken, Pepsi, and some other key players in this sector. What we like to think is that if we're all asking our farmers the same question, we're reducing this farmer bothering, as we call it, and we're starting to get towards these measurement areas by all in the same consistent and agreed methodology. So as well as doing a lot, and I've shown you some of the actions and some of the approaches we're taking, there are still areas that we're finding challenging and areas that we still don't know how to get towards this target. So, for example, palm oil, clearly a huge and controversial issue, and we're well aware that for deforestation we need to start acting now for many of the reasons Mike also mentioned with biodiversity and the social impacts. And so Unilever have made a further commitment to increase not just, by 2015 we were aiming to be 100% sustainable for palm oil, but we've now committed to do this by the end of 2012 through buying green palm certificates. However, the challenge is still that we know green palm certificates are an interim solution, and that there is a lot of sustainable palm oil that's being produced that isn't being purchased. So we now have made a new commitment to move towards tracing our sources of palm oil by 2020. So although we're a significant purchaser of palm oil, alone we can't help the whole sector to move in this direction. So we need to influence others to do similar. So traceability is clearly one challenge that we're facing, and palm oil is just an example of this, but this goes across our whole raw agricultural material portfolio, is how do we know how many farmers we're buying from, where they are in the world, the challenges they're facing. And in doing this traceability exercise, this is where we need to work on our adaptation and how we work with farmers to move towards more sustainable practices and adapt to the changing conditions that they're going to inevitably face in different parts of the world based on some of these scenarios highlighted in the report. Clearly, we need to increase our responsibility of the full value chain. I've talked a lot about how we are reducing our impact in the raw agricultural material sourcing sector, but you can see from this chart that the consumption and the consumer use phase is about 70% of our entire impact. A huge area, and as Carly mentioned in her presentation, several different uncertainties, unknowns, and difficulties to engage with consumers, to inform them and to help them to change their behaviours. So there's lots of different things going on, and Unilever have just recently invested a huge amount of money into this consumer behaviour change and engagement space. And Knorr are one of the brands that are working on an initiative called Taste is in Our Nature, which is trying to help consumers understand about the naturalness of products and the different ingredients and materials that go into them. Thirdly, we realise that we can't do this alone, and there's a lot of other things to be done. So we are beginning to partner with a lot of other companies to help drive this through even further. And these are just a few of the names on the board here that we're working with in some way. So this report for us was a really great start and a really great place to highlight some of the key areas and activities and challenges we're facing and the emphasis that we need to start to place on adaptation. Unilever probably fall into the high mitigation, low adaptation camp, where we are aiming to really drive down impacts so that adaptation in future is, I guess, easier in a sense, and that we can still remain operational and grow in a changing climate. So some of these scenarios do scare us, and it's a fantastic way of opening up to the business and to say, look, this is what we are facing. We need to act now and respond. So thank you very much.